Man, I am just at a loss for words. Like, I don't even know if I can do the intro right now that we normally got because I have not. I still have coronavirus, everybody. Very much so. It's caused a lot of issues with recording the podcast, but we had to come back on real quick for an emergency one. What the hell just happened? That is unbelievable. This is way more shocking to me than the week 1 win.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, man, the Bears are giving everyone heart attacks this year, right? I mean, there's nothing else you can do. I mean, the first half was like a headache all the way up in the third quarter. They're playing Trubisky, and everything's going downhill. They look like they lost their identity. All the good work that they seemed to kind of put together last week was kind of gone. And then before you know it, we put in Nick Foles, and all of a sudden we're able to turn the game around. But there's so much going on. There's so much in this game. Touchdowns getting called back, turnovers getting called back. I mean,
oh my God.
You couldn't ask for anything more, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was about to come on here, and up until about, I think, 7 minutes into the end of the game, I was about to come up here and say, I'm so sick of how this team plays. First off, let me get this out first. Refereeing was absolutely awful in this game. Truthfully, one of the worst goes I've seen at it. Like, it was just so bad. I mean, the turnover that was called back, the huge third down stop for roughing the passer, neither of those were roughing the passer. Okay. What was Bilal Nichols supposed to do? Matt Ryan was in the process of coming down when he got called for that. Like, that's how you can tell that he didn't get to the quarterback too late. So there's that. Was it Mac that got called on the roughing the passer?
The one where he caused the fumble is Mario Edwards that got called.
Oh, it was Mario Edwards. Yep. Okay, sorry about that. I said Bilal Nichols. Mario Edwards being called with roughing the passer on that. That was a horrible call. The quote-unquote not touchdown in the end zone by Nick Foles, that was pretty bad. And here's the thing, though, is like, okay, you can look at this two ways. First thing, I think that was a touchdown because clearly it was a tie, clearly, and on the field they called it a touchdown. And by rule, the tie goes to the receiver, and specifically because there was no clear view of who actually had possession when they were on the ground. I thought it was crazy to turn that over. I mean, that was just crazy to me. How many freaking drops the Bears receivers had was unbelievable. Anthony Miller in the end zone again. Darnell Mooney had a couple of drops in key moments. To be honest, the Bears could have ended this game destroying the Falcons. The Bears could have Foles himself could have put up 2 more touchdowns that he didn't. Like, it's just insane. Like, what happened? And, like, I don't want the win to make it so we don't look at all the bad things that happened, because clearly there was a lot of them. But at the end of the day, I mean, this team battled really, really hard, and Foles looked really, really good. Like, I thought, he had, okay, also Allen Robinson, he needs to figure out how to go over the top of a cornerback and pull down the damn ball. Because this is the second consecutive game. Like, I get that it probably was not the right call by the refs, but at the same time, this is the second consecutive game where he had an interception torn from him. That he needs to figure that out, clear as day. Mitch, if you would have told me before this game that Foles would be put in, I would be shocked. I wouldn't believe you. I thought that this was going to be Mitch's game. I thought that if we made a change at quarterback, we were going to make it, on a week where there's like some downtime for the next quarterback to prepare. But it was clear as day after the first half that this was Trubisky. Like, this is one of the worst defenses in the NFL that was also injured, and like, you can't even put anything together. He was missing so many throws horribly. And like, at the end of the day, yeah, Mitch can, lead you to a couple comebacks. He can win a couple games for you. But if you're that inconsistent, you're never going to win with him. And I think that was the reason for the ending of the Trubisky era that is official now. I cannot imagine that Foles will be exchanged. And just another thing that was so clear is that the football IQ difference, which, it's kind of a cliche term that people say, but the football IQ of Nick Foles compared to Mitchell Trubisky is insanely higher. Foles, he's going to miss you a couple throws. He missed Jimmy Graham in the end zone. Some throws he had, you could have maybe put it on.
Nearly a couple picks, honestly. A couple ones that he just kind of hung in there a little bit.
Yeah, and that one throw to Jimmy Graham we got kind of lucky on. But at the end of the day, he was coming back too. We need to remember that. He was coming back. He was in a game where he didn't even think he was going to start going into it. So I don't know, just the fact that he was able to be so aware, and he handles blitzes way better than Trubisky. Trubisky took so many dumb sacks in that game, whereas Foles, one of the first plays he came into the game, there was a huge opportunity for him to get sacked, right? And somehow, miraculously, he just kind of steps to the side and throws a nice little ball to, I think it was Cohen, who ended up getting a 25-yard gain. I mean, that's just something we would never possibly see from Trubisky.
I think that, we knew Foles meant business when he came out with the dark visor, and he lived up to the billing. Eventually, he took it off in the next series. Maybe it threw him off a little bit. But I think that, obviously, what you said
He's
about
indoors.
the football IQ, it's definitely a lot higher. And when he, made a couple of those throws, they're either a bad incompletion or, close to getting picked off. I think he recovered really well, and each time he was able to really drive the Bears down the field. It was generally a good blend of run and pass. I mean, like I kind of said in the beginning, the run game, took a huge step down from last week, a lot less efficient. I think a lot of that falls on the offensive line, who I think struggled for the most part, really got bailed out by, what you brought up in Foles being able to handle the pressure a lot better, led to them being able to sustain some drives by moving the ball through the air. Originally I thought Trubisky was going to do okay. At the start at the start of this game, I mean, I know that all our listeners and viewers didn't really get a chance to hear it just because of how weird this week has been. I thought the Bears were going to walk away with this one pretty easy. I'm not going to lie. I mean, it was a very battered Falcons team. I thought the matchups looked good. The defense was underwhelming in some stretches for sure. I mean, giving up quite a few points. But, I thought Trubisky would be able to take advantage. And when he broke off that one, 25, 30-yard run, I was like,
40-yard run.
Yeah, crazy long run. Defense was in man coverage is why it happened. But, still he broke it off. I was like, okay, he's going to find something this game, even though they only got the field goal. But, man, once they got into the red zone, they were so pedestrian. I mean, talk about how much of a carryover, how much we talked about this heading into the season, how the red zone was going to be huge. And still they've been very inconsistent leading up to it. And finishing. And then, I think that for the most part, Foles did a good job punching it in. Clearly, their best play in the red zone was getting it to Jimmy Graham by, trying to get him in a good matchup. And it's been working out well. I mean, thank God the Bears got him. He's been just a red zone machine for them. They need to get him the ball more.
Yeah. But he's dropped a couple also. He dropped a couple today, made some errors. But ultimately, good performance by him. He's done a great job. He's been worth the contract so far, and I was someone who was very critical of him. Deshaun Gibson, hey, he's worth the contract too. I think he's on a veteran minimum. Actually came away with a pick today. I want to say the first pick by Bears safety that actually got counted. Obviously Eddie Jackson should have had that pick 6 last week. But yeah, this was a really weird game. Really, really weird game. I almost my thoughts are so flawed right now from it. I can't really put it together because it's one of those things where it's yeah, we got the win and Foles looked really, really good, but there was I just don't get how though. I really still am so confused as to how. I just look down and all of a sudden we're down 16 with 7 or 8 minutes left, and I'm and we're getting closer to the red zone. I'm I don't know how we're doing this. And this was coming off of a ton of horrible drops. Drop by Allen Robinson, a couple drops by Darnell Mooney. Just really poor play. And, Anthony Miller in the end zone, another drop on a perfectly placed ball by Foles, by the way, may I add. Yeah, this was a really weird game. I'm happy. Like, this offense can be good with Foles. I mean, I know this is the Falcons defense, but this offense could be damn good with Foles. It really shows how bad Trubisky is, because I don't even think Foles is this great of a quarterback. Like, he's a bit inconsistent. He'll give you some good games, he'll give you some bad games, but how bad is Trubisky to, like, the offense was moving the ball at will on this defense.
Let me say this, man. Did you feel like we actually got to see Nagy's offense for a change?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's kind of what I'm getting at, because going into this game, I'm like, man, this whole time it's always been the battle between Mitchell Trubisky and Matt Nagy's offense, and it's like finally when Trubisky came in, you kind of saw like the wheels started turning. Like, it's like, okay, this is what it's actually supposed to look like a bit.
Wow. I mean, I think you said Trubisky there. I meant to say Foles, but yeah. I still have some criticisms of Matt Nagy, because I think that I think a big issue for him was the fact that, or at least one big issue that we saw like towards the end, which I really didn't like, is just how he refused to put David Montgomery in on the last drive when we ended up scoring a touchdown, which is good. But did you notice how many times on first down we had zero running backs? We're going with an empty backfield. That is just really confusing to me. So I do have questions about Matt Nagy, and I still have questions about his flexibility, being only able to operate with specific players in specific ways, not being able to really develop Mitchell Trubisky. Yeah, he's had Trubisky now for, 2 or 3 years, not being able to develop him. So I have concerns in that regard, certainly. But if this was any sort of, display of what the Chicago Bears can do, on offense, this can be a damn good offense. This offense can be really, really good. I mean, Foles, 1 quarter, three touchdowns. He would have a 12 touchdown game.
Yeah, exactly. He's gonna be a record breaker for sure.
Well, he actually is he tied the record for most touchdowns in a game. So,
well, yeah, there you go. I mean,
he'll break his own record.
Yeah, maybe. Another thing, I mean, the defense in this game, one thing that really kind of was interesting to me, because I feel like they had their moments. They looked good. Khalil Mack had his moment. Of course, his big one was...
I thought he looked really good.
Yeah. I think it's because, for whatever reason, Atlanta refused to really double-team him. He was in a lot of one-on-ones almost all game. Akeem Hicks was just a monster today. I mean, he's
having a huge year.
All over. But everything else, I'm not really sure where a lot of the issues defensively are coming from, especially in like kind of being able to give up like big explosive plays. I mean, to open off in that way they did, giving up that play to Calvin Ridley, they can't continue to do that. And that was the defense opened wide up. They caught Eddie Jackson kind of just cheating up a little bit too much, and I think it was Jalen Johnson who had the initial coverage, I believe. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, in the beginning of the game, they really caught Eddie there. I just think the Bears aren't used to playing wide receiver with the type of quickness and route running ability as Calvin Ridley. Like, he may not be the number one wide receiver in that offense traditionally, but he provides just so much for that team, and he can really stretch the field. And I also don't think they were expecting just how quickly Matt Ryan can get the ball out of his hands. Like, how quickly and like how effortlessly as well. And so when you have a player who, can get 40 yards downfield with 2 seconds after the snap, and you have a quarterback who's, well, maybe not 2 seconds after the snap, but you know what I'm saying, like 4 seconds after the snap, and you have a quarterback that can reach that so effortlessly and quickly, the plays don't need to develop that long. And I don't think the Bears are used to that, at least not this season. The defense started playing a little bit better as it went on, but ultimately I look at Danny Trevathan. I think he improved this game. But I think that he certainly needs to continue to step it up. And I think that we still need to add a defensive tackle. I think Snacks Harrison, it would be a perfect add. I know he's going to be visiting us pretty soon, so that's where I think most of the things come. I still think we're missing like Treshaun Gibson obviously had a great day today, just getting that. But I think we are still missing just a ranging, roaming safety. Ultimately, like, what bothers me about the defense is we knew the exact game plan the Falcons were going to have. We knew that they were going to come out. They don't have a great offensive line. Try to make some quick throws. Try to develop a deep play every once in a while. And we still ended up, not doing too great against them. This defense has some things to figure out, certainly.
Yeah, and one of them being that got exposed, through the deep ball, but also too in the run game, which kind of surprised me. I mean, they made Gurley look like how he was playing about 3 to 4 years ago, and let up a couple big runs. I mean, particularly that one for Hill. There was a decent touchdown run. I think literally right before the half was kind of like a gut punch. I think it's just there's kind of these issues.
No, keep going. Sorry.
It's kind of the same issues kind of keep popping up, and you brought up a good point about Damon Harrison still being out there. It seems to be they're kind of getting opened up right through the middle, and Trevathan, I think he played a lot more physical today. I think he was playing with some real passion, but I still think he's losing like a half a step. I think the age really kind of just finally caught up with him. Yeah. Also that too, I mean, really right from the jump, they exposed him and literally finding where he was getting off that play action. So.
Yeah, it really has to do with Danny Trevathan in coverage, I think. I think that Chuck Pagano has some issues with the way he play calls his defense, and he's not in the same way of Vic Fangio, where you will know essentially what Vic Fangio throws at you, but he'll make subtle tweaks here or there. I just think, truthfully, the defense is more complex, and the players maybe aren't used to it fully right now. Or it's just one of those things where, with Vic Fangio, the defense was so simple that the players learned how to just play that type of defense so well. I mean, we talked about our own criticisms, of Vic Fangio, which was sometimes he played a little bit too conservative on defense. But he also put together a much better Bears defense than they've had this season or last season. But yeah, ultimately, I just think that Chuck Pagano might be slightly part of the issue. Again, the defense is still good. The defense is still well above average, and they come up with big plays when they need to. Today, the defense would have looked really good if we didn't have so many bad calls against them. Like, really good.
Yeah, I think there's some fair points to that. It took away some big moments for sure when you take over a turnover. That
last week too, Eddie Jackson.
Yeah, for multiple weeks, and if they get that fumble, they're in pretty positive territory. Who knows? I mean, you get into a situation where if that happens and the Bears go on and score, maybe Foles never makes an appearance in this game. But of course, the game played out the way it did, and I haven't lost faith in this Bears defense. I think they just need to figure some things out, and you make a good point with kind of the defensive scheme. I think just at times, I think Pagano's defense kind of tends, and he's okay with it, kind of just being vulnerable in certain areas and kind of letting certain things hang out and being more aggressive at times than Fangio would tend to be. Yeah.
Ultimately, very proud of this team. The defense came through when we needed them to. Once again, coming through the defense, that's the one thing is that I felt like, Vic Fangio, obviously, when we went up against Philadelphia and at certain other times in his tenure, they would sometimes give up like a really important drive where, to date this season, Chuck Pagano's defense has really stayed in there when it mattered. They gave up, they've given up some plays when there's plenty of time on the clock, but when it has mattered, the Bears defense has been there for them. And that's, insanely valuable.
Yeah, and ultimately, I mean, it's 3-0, but man, I don't know if there's a more unconvincing 3-0 out there. I mean, this team is kind of one ways scraping back in. You got to give them credit for it, though. I mean, they're 3 big wins that could really mean a lot, come the end of the season. And scraping out this win against the Falcons could be more valuable than we think. Looking back, of course they got a couple bigger games coming up, so it's gonna be interesting to see how they respond and ultimately how they play in the coming weeks for sure.
I'm coming out of this feeling better than I did going into this, truthfully. Because like I didn't expect the Bears offense to be as good as it was with Foles under center. And of course, it's it's the Falcons defense, right? We're not playing the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. We're not playing the 2018 Chicago Bears defense. Although Mitchell Trubisky made them look like that, that is not who we were playing. I'm excited to see Foles. This gives me a lot of excitement for next week.
Yeah, I'm excited. I want to see more of this. I want to see Foles play a complete game, and because I think that it's a fair criticism to say that Trubisky's had good quarters, just like Foles did to wrap up that game. So I want to see him. I want to see the difference between having Foles in for a full game. To me, it just seemed like he got clicked into a rhythm and the offense really started going. So hopefully we can get a full 60 minutes of good Bears football in the next game, because we really have not gotten that at any point this season. It's been tough. It's been tight. These have been hard-fought wins, and it's been good that they've gotten them, but, man, anything but unconvincing. So, yeah, hopefully Foles in for a whole game is going to change that narrative.
And for all the, Cam Newton, wish we had him, Bears fans, Nick Foles just put up more touchdowns in one quarter than Cam Newton put up in the first 2 games of his season. So, yeah, we made the right decision.
Don't act like you weren't one of them in the offseason. So, yeah.
Yes. No, I'm just kidding. Cam Newton's had a good year. I do think there's something to be said about Nick Foles knowing the system, and that's why we made the decision. I think that bringing Cam Newton in here is starting over at square one. And Nagy wasn't ready to do that. So I'm excited. I'm really excited, and I'm excited to draft a quarterback going into next year as well.
Yeah. You'd have to, I'm sure that'll be a big point on our next podcast, but you'd have to think that's probably what's coming up now.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you guys so much. I hope you like this instant reaction format. We're going to be getting back to the podcast as soon as we can. I'm doing all right with coronavirus, but it is still kind of kicking my ass. So we'll figure it out. But bear down, guys. Bear down.
Bear down.